إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Let us continue inshallah. So today we're going to be looking at the tafseer of Surah Al Adiyat. It's a fairly straightforward, simple surah, and then inshallah after Adiyat we'll move over to the next one, which is the Surah Al Kawthar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. Okay, so this surah is another Mekki surah consisting of 11 verses. The theme of the surah once again is starting with Al-Qasam. Okay, so as we've seen the Mekki surah so far, they're all starting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing or making oath. The past surahs we've seen so far, the oath that Allah has made is with more of these universal signs, like we said, the mountains, the stars, the skies, so on and so forth. But this time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes oath by something new. He says, وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. So it's another oath, and we can tell it's an oath by the waw at the beginning, and the qasam, wal-adiyati. Okay, so that's how we know it's a qasam. And also through meaning. What does that mean? The word adiyat, you get different translations, but the loose translation means the charging. Yeah. What do you guys have in your translations for adiyat? Anything other than charging?
Steed.
Steed, yeah. So charging or steeding. Okay, good. Then it says dabaha. Dabaha is the sound that is made of panting of horses when they are running. The sound they make when they are running and they're breathing very heavy. So you have what's known in Arabic here as the sifa, the adjective, wal adiyat, but the noun is missing. Okay, so we don't know what it is that's been talked about, but we can get it from context. So the noun is missing, and what it is talking about the charging horses. Okay, so the noise that the horse makes, and it's not just talking about any horse, but here it is talking about the war horses. Okay, and horses, those who have a interest in horses, there are different types. Yeah? The best of them, the strongest of them, or the stallions, they're the ones that are used in war. Okay, the biggest ones. And in those days, the horses were one of the most expensive commodities. People valued horses. So in war language today, they'd be your tanks or your airplanes. So that they were very expensive commodities, and showing the strength of a people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we know, speaks a language that people understand, and the language people are aware of. So when Allah talked about horses, especially war horses, the people listening, the Meccans, they understood exactly what was happening, and they understood the severity and the importance of such horses. So Al-Adiyat is the adjective, the noun is missing, and we can clearly say they are horses. Some of the Mufassirin did say they were camels, but the overwhelming opinion of the Mufassirun is that they are horses. Okay, so the word dabaha is talking about the noises that they make. If we move on to the next ayah, فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدَحًا, and the muriyat is talking about the hooves of the horses. Okay, qadha. Qadha is sparks. Okay, what do we have? Anyone have anything other than sparks?
The very sparks of fire by the hooves.
Yeah, so the sparks of fire. So what's the saying to us? When the horses are running and the hooves are touching the earth, they're running so fast that the contact they make is leaving off sparks. So this is just showing us that there are war horses and they're very fast, okay, very strong. Again, talking the language of the people of that time. So if we were to make a comparison, if it wasn't a war, it was a car, so maybe you would say, I don't know, like a Ferrari, it's gone 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. If I said that, you'd understand how fast the car is. But if you talk to the people at that time and you said, فَالْمُورِيَةُ قَدَحًا, that when their feet hit the earth, it leaves sparks, it's the same kind of message. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing on the most expensive, most prized possession that people have, and they were the war horses. فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا, and فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ, again, this is talking about horses, but raiding horses. Okay, so the horses that are used on the front line. Okay, so we even said there are different types of horses. So here we're talking about those fast stallions that when war breaks out, they go in the front line. They're the ones who go and attack. So the best of all horses, فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ, the raiding horses, صُبْحًا. That's interesting as well how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says صُبْحًا. Why? Because if you study war history in those times, most raids that used to take place, or battles that used to take place after subh, after the morning. So as soon as the sun has risen, that's when battle would take place, or prior to the sun rising. So here, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying the raiding horses that go out subha, which means at sunrise. Okay? Hence you have Salatul Subh, which is the morning prayer. Also, Al-Mughirat, this is a prized possession, the raiding horses. There's a companion by the name of Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah. Okay, you may have heard of this Sahabi, Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah. Again, Al-Mughira is named after raiding horses. Okay, so people would, in those times, would name people would name each other or their children after very expensive things or things of value, okay, or things that have names. Even before Islam, okay, in Jahiliyyah, people would name their children after animals. Okay, so you would find names, which is quite funny if you're reading old names. You find, for example, Abu Kalb. Okay, so a guy would name himself dog. Okay, or Batta, he'd name himself after a duck. Yeah, so these kind of names were common because these were things that were known to the people. So in this case, Al-Mughira, so the Sahabi's name is Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah, and here the verse Al-Mughira means the raiding horses that go out in the morning. We also, the word Subha has come for the second time when we looked in Surah Al Lahab. Yeah, Surah Al Lahab, what did we say? When the Prophet ﷺ, he stood out and he called the people. What time of the day did he stand out and call the people? It was a Subh. Yeah, and that time again, it was in the Subh, and he called out the people and he said, "Oh Quraysh, Ya Ma'ashara Quraysh." He called them all out. Why? Because this is the time when war takes place. So if a message was said at this time, everyone's going to come out. So again, Abu Lahab, in the Surah of Lahab, he said, "Wa Sabaha," and he's calling people out into the mornings. Okay. Furthermore, we also said that whenever Allah swears by something, that thing in Arabic we call it mu'azzam shar'an, meaning this thing becomes dignified, or it becomes honorable in the sight of the Sharia. So these horses are something which are mu'azzam, or dignified, or the right word is honored. Okay. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and he says, فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقَعَ. Okay, how do your English translations read that?
And penetrate into the midst of the foe.
Okay, good. So this is once again talking about the description of the Mughirat, talking about the horses that we said they're the frontline horses that go straight into the battle and they penetrate the front lines of the enemies. Describing them again. فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. And what do we say there? فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. So we'll read that out for me as well, please.
Truly man is to his Lord ungrateful.
The line before that.
Oh, sorry. And raise the dust in clouds the while.
Okay, good, yeah. So again, this is talking about فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا, that it runs into the enemy, into the middle lines of the enemy. Okay, so from verses 1 to 5, effectively Allah is swearing by the horses, okay, the war horses, and all of it is a description of what they're like. Yeah, so drawing an image in our minds on how valuable, how strong these horses are. Now, in verse number 6, the following verse, we said if you have a qasam, somebody is swearing by Allah or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by something, there must be a jawab. There must be something that you are trying to prove by that qasam. So if you say wallahi, you try to say something, there's a message coming, there's a jawab. The jawab is verse number 6. So you can write that down. So the qasam starts from verse number 1 and the jawab comes in at number 6. And what is the answer? What is Allah swearing by? Inna al-insana لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُونَ. Verily, al-insan, the alif wal lam at the beginning of this insan is alif wal lam al-istighraqiyya, which means it encompasses all humans. He didn't say believers, he didn't say men, he didn't say women, he didn't say, he defined all people. So, inna al-insana, verily, all people, لِرَبِّهِ, to their Lord, لَكَنُونَ, that they are ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? That these people are ungrateful to Allah Almighty. Okay. وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. And Allah then swears and says, verily, Allah is all aware and all seeing of what you do, meaning your ungratefulness. That Allah gives, you don't appreciate, you do not appreciate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Okay. Furthermore, something else important about the subha, about the morning, is that the Prophet ﷺ, when they would raid areas, before they would raid the area, which is the time of subh, what they would do, they would wait outside the town or an area in the early hours, and they would wait. And they would wait to hear the adhan for Fajr. If they heard the adhan, then he would not raid them, because he would acknowledge that they are Muslims, they're believers, the message has reached them. If he didn't hear the call of the adhan for the Fajr prayer, then he would move in. Okay? Once again showing us that some of these signs, the masha'ir, or the sha'ir, the signs of Islam, of the Muslim community, is the adhan. So it's very important that if there is a community of people, that we try to establish the adhan. This is one of the signs that we're a Muslim community. Okay? So here showing the Prophet ﷺ saying if they didn't have the Fajr adhan, these are signs to show that they are not believers. So إِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. Verily Allah is all aware of what you're doing. وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. And now Allah is describing these people. Verily, إِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ, verily they have a strong love. الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. Now, hub is clear that they have a love. Al-khayr, this is where you have to look at tafseer to understand what does khayr mean. Sometimes we can be very enthusiastic as Arabic students or students of Islam, and we can translate what does khayr generally mean. It means good, right? So if someone says kayfa haluk, you say bikhair, okay, I'm okay. So, but in this case, it does not mean just good. Okay, we have to look into the tafsir of words, what they mean. So the linguistic meaning is good, but what the tafsir states here is that al-khayr translates as al-mal, okay, anything of wealth. So Allah says, إِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. Verily, for wealth, He loves it. He didn't just say He loves it, He said shadid. Shadid means?
Extremely.
Yeah, extremely. Okay, intense. Is that same in Urdu as well? Shadid, okay. So, when the answer comes quick, then I know it's so لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ, that verily people, they have a love for wealth, not any type of love, but a shadid, an extreme wealth. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses, He describes Himself as being Ghafur Rahim. He's extremely merciful and forgiving, but at the same time He says He's Shadidul Iqab, that He is the most severest when it comes to punishing as well. And then the same word Shadid is used for people when it comes to the love of wealth. Okay. And then what does Allah say? Allah continues with some more of the warnings. أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ. Now, what does that mean? That أَفَلَا, that they will come to know إِذَا بُعْثِرَ, when they will be resurrected or removed, مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ, that which is inside the graves. Okay? So Allah is telling us that you are receiving the warnings. Now you can imagine how many surahs we've read so far. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing and trying to educate the people, trying to show the people what's right and what's wrong. And here Allah is still saying you have still a very strong love for the worldly possessions. And since you will come to know, or you will understand when things are extracted out of their graves. Okay? Meaning the day of judgment. Then you'll come to understand. Then وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. Okay, and then that the sadr is the chest, sudur is the plural, yeah, so chests, and then it is, and then we will remove that which is inside of your chests and make it apparent. So what's in your chest, nobody knows except for you and Allah. Yeah, what's inside the graves? If you went to a graveyard, do you know what's inside? You don't know what's inside. Allah says on that day, what's secret in the graves will take it out. Will show everybody. And Allah says what's secret in your chests as well, the sins that you do or the good that you do, on that day that will also become apparent. So everybody will know your haqiqah, your reality, what you're really about. So one can walk in a very pious way, behave in a pious way, look as if he's extremely religious, but what happens on that day, everything will become apparent. Nothing will be hidden. So Allah says, وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ, everything will be shown to the world of what your real character is. And it's amazing because these two lines that we've just read, أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ, they're talking about two different things, but with the same theme. And the theme is of exposure. Okay? And then the last verse, إِنَّ رَبَّهُمْ بِهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَخَبِيرٌ, verily your Lord is all aware of what is going to happen and what is going to take place. Okay? So that is effectively Surah Al Adiyat. Okay, there's nothing complicated there. It's again a Makki surah reminding us to really behave ourselves, to understand the signs of Allah, to know that there's going to come a day where everything is going to be exposed. Okay, that's why that day is called Yawm al-Jaza, the day you'll either be given reward or punishment. Yawm al-Hisab, meaning the day where you'll be given accountability. No one is going to walk away free from any of their crimes. Okay, so now if I can ask you to turn to the next surah, which is Al Kawthar. Okay, Surah Al Kawthar. What number is that?
16.
16.
1, 6.
16.
No.
What is
The
it?
surah number is in there.
108.
108.
Was there a particular reason for this surah thing? Was it, why did surah came?
The exact sabab al-nuzul of this surah, I didn't really find the reason for revelation for this particular surah, but it was just one of those sequential things. So in the early times of Makkah, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending down verses to increase the people's iman. So things that they're aware of. So we started off with looking at the moon, the sun, the stars. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just recalling the people's memory. If there's a specific reason for this surah, I didn't find it, unless you have something.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know because he's mentioning all about Ghazwa.
Horses, Ghazwa, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is very interesting actually. The answer brings up a point that this surah is all talking about Ghazawat, fighting. Yeah. In the early days of Mecca, was there any fighting? That were Muslims allowed to fight?
No.
You know, when did jihad actually become legal? In Medina, a good 13 years later. But here we're talking about war. Yeah. So we're talking about. And so that's why some of the Mufassirun, they said this is not talking about horses because we didn't have jihad at that time, it's talking about camels. But when you look at the context, okay, about the sparks and the running and so on, so the camels don't behave like that. So they said, no, this is talking about horses. But the point is that these war was very common amongst the Arabs at that time, the Quraysh at that time. So it doesn't matter whether jihad was stipulated or not. It was a language they understood.
But could this be God giving advice on how to conduct war? Because saying these front line and everything like that. Why would they know that at that time?
Possibly, I can't say yes or no, possibly, but they did know how to fight. I mean, that was something they were well known for. So they knew, for example, we all know Khalid bin Walid, before he became Muslim, he was a general all his life, and he never lost a battle, even before coming into Islam. So showing us that the Arabs, the one thing they did know how to do was kill properly. So they were good at war. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. So let's go over to the next one, Surah Al Kawthar. This is a beautiful surah. Really, it's amazing because it's one of the it is the shortest surah in the Quran, and it's got the most extensive amount of tafseer on it. There are so many books written on this surah. It's amazing. It's subhanAllah, the miracles of the Quran. Okay, it's beautiful as well. So let's have a look. This surah, effectively, we do know the reason for the revelation of this particular surah, and the reason of revelation if I summarize it quickly, is due to the events that took place at the time of the death of the son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We all know about the 4 daughters of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but many of us forget that he also had 3 sons. Okay, he had 2 sons from his first wife, which was Khadija. Okay, and the eldest of them, his name was Qasim. Okay, after Qasim was very young, little boy, a few years old, he died. Okay, then after Qasim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed the Prophet with another son from Khadija, and his name was Abdullah. Okay, and then Abdullah was still very young, they say between the age of 1 or 2, and this is, for parents, this is the most beautiful age of a child, when they're just learning to talk or say a few words and stuff. So this is the most beautiful, even then Abdullah died, okay, between the age of 1 or 2. Then later on, okay, when the Prophet he also married Maria, the Coptic, he had a son with her as well, and his name was Ibrahim. And subhanAllah, qadarallah, Ibrahim as well, he was a year or a little bit, and he died as well. Okay, so the Prophet had 3 sons, and all of them died at a very young age. He had 4 daughters, and from the 4 daughters, 3 of them died while he was alive. So he buried 3 of them. The only one that lived after him, Fatima Zahra, yeah, she was the only one that lived after him, and not much after him, and she also passed away. So the whole theme of the surah, can you imagine, as a prophet, that it's also important for us to contextualize the environment. Yeah? In this country, many of us who are born here, we won't really truly understand what's happening. But in those times, still to this day, that a son is, when somebody has a son, they're much more happier than they are when they have a daughter. Not because there's a bad name or ill when there's a daughter, but it's just the continuation of one's wealth and one's lineage and one's name and one's family and so on. So people are happy that they have a son, that someone's going to continue on with my hard work. So at that time, people used to boast about having sons and boast. That's why we find in the Quran many times Allah talks about al-awlad, al-malu wal-banu all the time, because sons were something people used to boast about. So the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, they had sons, okay, and they used to boast about it. Abu Jahl, they had sons. The Prophet ﷺ didn't have any children. He didn't have any sons. So when he had the first one, this was very early on, and we said his name was Qasim, that Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl, and imagine these are his uncles, okay, his blood uncles. They became angry and upset at the fact that he had a son, because they thought at that time the world was run by kings, and who follows the power of rule after a king is his son. So in their view, was the Prophet was a king, okay, and who's going to carry his message on? His son, Abdullah. So they were angry with the fact that he had a son. But when his son died, they were happy and they were boasting. They're saying he's finished. His message is once he dies and there's no Abdullah, it's finished. He's only got girls and they'll get married, and that's it. It's the end of his message. So they were happy with that. So the Prophet, he always desired and he always wanted to have a son. So sometime later, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with Abdullah. The Prophet became very happy. Okay, and Abdullah, he had many names. The Prophet used to call him different names. These are worth writing down. One of them was Al-Tahir. Okay, one of them was Al-Tahir, and the other one was Al-Tayyib. We can see also here from the Sunnah that the Prophet would like to name people with good names. Okay, so if somebody, Al-Tahir, but it means the one who is pure. Okay, Tahara, for example, Al-Tahir, the one who is pure and clean. Al-Tayyib is the one who is always doing good. So if you call somebody Al-Tayyib, you're constantly calling him Al-Tayyib, Tayyib, Tayyib. Then when he thinks about doing something wrong, he's going to think twice. Okay, so this is something we learn, that when we name ourselves, like even nicknames, we should give good nicknames to each other so that it promotes, okay, a psychological effect on the person. Whereas in this society, as we're growing up, we tend to mock each other and give each other, we see a weakness in a person, we exploit it and call that person whatever he is, shorty or fatty or whatever, and that's what we give them. And we reduce their confidence instead of going the other way. Yeah. So early times of Mecca, the people were calling the Prophet ﷺ a liar, they were calling him a magician, they were calling him crazy. وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تُؤْمِنُونَ وَلَا بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. That they used to call him a liar, they used to call him a magician, and Allah said he is not a liar and he is not a magician. وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. That he is not somebody who is crazy. So these things were reassured. Then the good news came, and the Prophet ﷺ had Abdullah, And this was a second blow to his arch enemies Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl, and they became really angry with the fact that he had a son. But very soon after the birth of Abdullah, he also died, like I said. Okay, so it's some people from the Tafseer that I read, some say 1, some say 1.5, between 1 and 2. Okay, he died. Okay. And also, just to put things into perspective as well, is that the Prophet ﷺ was a yatim, meaning that his dad died before he was born. His mum died when, how old was he? 6. And his grandfather looked after him, died when he was 8. Okay? And then his uncle died when he was 40. Yeah? So imagine the life of a man who's constantly those who are the most closest to him, they keep disappearing. You know, just to lose one loved person is so difficult. You can't get your head around it. But constantly, you know, after every couple of years, someone is dying. The most closest people. So this is the mindset, the challenges that he was going through. Okay. So when Abdullah passes away, the people of that time, they started to rejoice, and they started to mock the Prophet ﷺ in an open manner. Does anybody know of a person in Islamic history known as Al-As ibn Wa'il? One person's heard of his name.
Yes.
Okay, 2. Yeah? 2 people heard of his name. Okay. Why do I ask that question? Because he, Al-As ibn Wa'il, as well as Abu Lahab, were the 2 main people who were mocking the Prophet ﷺ. And what they were saying when he died was saying, قَدْ بُتِرَ Muhammad. قَدْ بُتِرَ Muhammad. Now this word, to explain what butira means, is quite explicit. I'll try my best. Butira Muhammad means the man is cut off. He's got no lineage, he's got no legacy, he's got no story. But it's even deeper than that. It's a really rude word. Qad butira Muhammad means he is physically, as a man, he's cut off. He doesn't know how to perform his manly duties. That's why he keeps having girls. So they were mocking him to that point that he doesn't even function properly. And they were saying that openly, and they were mocking him, Qad butira Muhammad, and Al-As ibn Wa'il was the one who was saying that, mocking the Prophet openly, and Abu Lahab was also those who were mocking him. But what's interesting to know is that the Prophet definitely was not cut off, because we know that the number of people following his message are more than any other person in the world, so he definitely is not cut off. But what's interesting is Al-As ibn Wa'il, the one who was saying you're cut off, he is the one who is cut off, because no one even knows him. One person in the class knew who he was. Okay, Abu Lahab is only mentioned when we are reading the surah, when we are sending curses upon him. Okay, the other reason to why someone might know Al-As ibn Wa'il, because he was the father of a great Sahabi. Who can guess? It's obvious in his name. Yeah, Amr ibn al-As. Okay, so Amr ibn al-As, the one who opened Egypt, he was his son, and he was a great Sahabi. Okay, so you can imagine, look what the father is, and look where the son is. 2 different sides of the spectrum. Okay, good. So, as I said, now the people, they said, قَدْ بُتِرَ Muhammad, قَدْ بُتِرَ Muhammad, they are mocking and they are taking fun of the Prophet ﷺ for not having any sons. The Prophet is very sad about not just the death of his son, and not just the fact that his own blood uncles, Abu Lahab, and they are making fun of him, and not just that, but the community at large, they're all laughing at him. Can you imagine, you lost your son, your relatives, your family, everyone's laughing at you. It's very, very difficult. So the Prophet ﷺ was at a time he was very sad. When he was really sad, that's when this happened. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent this surah, and what did Allah say? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now sends him this message, and it said that the Prophet was lying down, he was like almost sleeping, and then all of a sudden he just started laughing or smiling. And then when he started smiling, the companions asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what happened? He was lying there, he started laughing and smiling. He said, Allah has just revealed me this surah. So it took him out of his sadness. And what did he say? He said, before I go to that, one other thing I want to make note as well is that, subhanAllah, you know Surah Al Kawthar is the shortest surah in the Quran, right? And everybody loves to read Surah Al Kawthar, we memorize it, we read it. Okay, so that, and the other surah that's very short, and we read it very often in our salah, is which one? Al-Ikhlas, yeah, Al-Asr as well, but I think more commonly is Ikhlas, right? Those 2 surahs, if you think about those 2 surahs, Al-Kawthar is talking all about the Prophet ﷺ. Ikhlas is talking all about Allah. These are the two surahs that are most oftenly read. What other statement do Muslims profess that contain the Tawheed of Allah and the Prophethood of the Prophet? The Shahada. So it's almost like people are continually saying the Shahada over and over again because these are the most two common surahs and they're shortest and the most easiest to read as well. The Shahada is just continually being reinforced whether we see it or not. That was just something, a side point that I wanted to add. Okay, so Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. So let's start off. Inna. So here we say, verily we a'tainaka al-kawthar. That verily we have given you, okay, al-kawthar, which is the, we'll talk about the Kawthar in a second. So verily we have given. So inna, firstly, it is the particle of emphasis, yeah, and then it has the na at the end, which is we. And one other thing to make note of is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to himself in the Quran with the royal we. Okay, so some people may bring up the argument to say that you've got multiple gods, not one, because you're referred to as we. But no, we say this is the royal we. Okay, so even if you're referring to royalty, royal families, and so if the queen is referring to herself, for example, she will say we. Okay, because it's a royal we. It's not one of polytheism. Yeah. So inna, verily we a'tainaka, that we have given you. Okay, and a'taina is a type of giving that does not necessitate a return. So you're giving something, not expecting anything. We have given you, almost like a gift. Inna a'tainaka, that verily we have given you. And what is it that we have given you? Al Kawthar. And we're going to talk about what is Al Kawthar in just a few seconds. Yeah? Or actually it is the river, which is inside of paradise. And in many hadith, it is reported that the Kawthar is a river the banks, yeah, the sides of the river are made out of beautiful pearls. It's whiter than milk and it's more sweeter than honey. Meaning it's a river that is beautiful, okay, that you can't imagine. And Allah, imagine the Prophet is very sad and then also he gets a gift. Yeah? Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, that don't be sad, we've given you the most beautiful river in Jannah, it's yours. Which puts a smile on his face. Another side note, remember we talked last week I think about the famous liar, okay, who claimed to be a prophet. What was his name? Yeah, Musaylim al-Kadhdhab. And we said that he tried to author the Quran as well many times. So when he had this surah, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, he tried to also come out with something similar to it. And it's hilarious. So if you understand Arabic, you're going to get it, and then I'll translate it. So what did he say? He said, what's this surah? I can produce something better than that. So he said, what? Inna a'tainaka al-tufah, fasalli rabbika wartah, wada' anka as-sabah. Okay, now if you don't know Arabic, that sounds quite nice. But when you actually look at the meaning, it's hilarious. What do you say? Inna a'tainaka at-tufah. Verily, we have given you the apple. Okay? And then we say, fasalli rabbika wartah. So pray to Allah and relax. Wada' anka as-sabah. And just relax at the time of the morning. It's got no meaning whatsoever. You're talking about apple. What is the significance of the whole surah? So Musaylim al-Kadhdhab, this is why those who understand Arabic and the people at that time knew this guy is a joker. That's what he was, because it's got no relevance. Compare that to Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Like this is the difference between the heavens and the earth, completely different. Yeah. So just to add to that as well. So now the Kawthar is a river which is found in Jannah, and it has a stream that flows from the Jannah, and this stream is going to come flowing into the Day of Judgment, okay, Yawm al-Qiyamah, and this is known as the, who knows that pool of water that's going to become from al-Kawthar on Yawm al-Qiyamah, where people are going to rush to drink because they're going to be suffering from the heat or the intensity of the Day of Judgment. Yeah, a hawd, yeah, the hawd, which is known as the pool. So there will be a hawd Yawm al-Qiyamah, and people will go running to that. The followers of the Prophet will go running to that to drink from it. And it's also said in the hadith that the angels, they will grab some of these believers and they will stop them from drinking. And the Prophet will reach out and he will say, Ummati, they're from my nation, let them drink. And then the angels will stop and they say, no, you do not know what these people did after you left. You don't know what kind of what they say bid'at, or what evils they have done after you. Okay, what they invented into the deen. They changed the deen. So they prevented them from drinking from the hawd. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who drink from the hawd. Ameen. So this is Al-Kawthar. The word Al-Kawthar, it also comes from kathara, which means kathara, kathir, okay, which means a lot. Why is it from the word a lot? Because this river is going to provide water or sustenance for the whole of Jannah. Okay, so there's a lot of people, so it's known as Al-Kawthar or Kathir. Okay. The next thing, the verse أعطيناك, this verb once again, in what tense is it? Past tense, okay? But has he actually given it to him yet? Has he received it? No, he's in dunya, he's not in the akhirah yet. So Allah says, we have given it to you. Like I said this before many times, that when we use the past tense, it's one of certainty, okay, rather than future. Okay, the example I give for this is if I said to you, I will give you £500, okay, or if I said to you, I have given you, transferred £500, which of those two statements would you like to hear? Yeah, I've transferred it, right? Because you know you've got it. So the same thing in the past tense. So Allah says, Inna a'tainaka, that we have given it to you. It's there, it's waiting for you. So again, the past tense is used for more emphasis and for more power. Okay. Okay, and Ibn Taymiyyah rahmahullah, he also speaks about the inna, the plural we, and he says another reason to why in this verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the inna, the we, is because Allah is of course the creator of all things, but it is through the malaika they created this river. So that's why the inna is referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well as the malaika. Okay, that it was through the malaika that they decorated and they made this Kawthar especially for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so let's move to the next verse. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So what does Allah say? That you have received a beautiful river, so the fa, okay, is therefore, or then, what should you do? فَصَلِّ, pray, لِرَبِّكَ, to your Lord, وَانْحَرْ, and sacrifice. Teaching us, number one, the first thing, that if something good happens to you, what's the first thing you should do? Shukr. Yeah, do shukr to Allah. Okay, something good happens, give some charity, say something nice, do something good, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the good. So Allah says, here you have a Kawthar, what should you do? فَصَلِّ رَبِّكَ. Now turn back to me and do more worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَصَلِّ رَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Now the nahar, okay, when we do sacrificing of animals, there's two types of sacrifices. There's the dhabiha, which is the sacrifice of the cow or the sheep or the goat, which is where you put the knife and you put the knife in that way. You've probably all done it or seen it. The nahar is only for which animal?
Camel.
The camel, yeah? The nahar is only for the camel because the camel's neck is this big, yeah? So those who've been to the Arab world or seen it, the camel's neck is this. So if you try to get a knife that's going to go, it's not going to happen, yeah? And it's very strong. So the way the nahar takes place is almost like a dagger, and you lift up the neck of the camel and there's a space and you just push it straight in, okay? You push it straight in and then you pull it back out. And it has the same effect as the dhabiha. Okay, so this is why when we say nahar, it's talking about camels. So فَصَلْ رَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ, so pray to your Lord and sacrifice. What's interesting as well, subhanAllah, every word has a deep meaning. That when Allah says sacrifice, you could have said وَذْبَحْ. Okay, a dhabh could be a chicken, could be a cow or a sheep. What's the difference between a camel and a sheep?
Camels were more expensive.
Very good. The camels were the most expensive thing to sacrifice. So Allah says, when you pray to your Lord and you're going to do sacrifice, do the best sacrifice. Yeah, don't just do a 5p or 10p sacrifice. And this is my sadaqah. I'm grateful for Allah. Allah says, no, do the biggest one. Yeah. So show your shukr with the best of sacrifices. What's also important, subhanAllah, at this time, early in these days of Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't have a camel. He was quite poor. He didn't have that kind of wealth. But Allah said, Allah is telling you to sacrifice a camel. So what can we learn from that? Of course, Allah knows he doesn't have a camel, but Allah is telling him to sacrifice camels.
As much as you can.
That's one thing, as much as you can.
He's going to attain wealth.
Very good, well done. Okay, Allah promises him wealth. Allah promises him, it's just a matter of time. You'll be in a position where you can sacrifice as many camels as you like. Okay, and 13 years later was when, or a bit more than 13 to 20 years later is when Fath Mecca took place. And they opened up Mecca, and the Prophet ﷺ took control of the whole of Mecca and Medina, and he had all the wealth, all the camels, all the horses at his expense. He could do what he wants with them. Okay, and it's also said at this time, at Fath Mecca, that the Prophet ﷺ, or soon after his Hajj, that he sacrificed up to 60 camels, yeah, to show to implement this ayah, to show the nahr. They sacrificed over 60 camels and distributed the meat across to the poor people, okay, to fulfill this promise of the one half. So subhanAllah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is building him from a position of sadness to building his confidence. So turn to your Lord and do an-nahr. The other thing we can also extract from this ayah is فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. The first part is telling you to do what? Pray, yeah? They call this ibadah badaniya. So do some kind of ibadah, which is dealing with the body. Okay? So giving sacrifice, so praying or fasting. So this is called ibadah badaniya. Do something which is to connecting with your body of worship. Then the second thing is wanhar, which this second thing Allah is asking to is what kind of worship is that? Something that requires money. Good, yeah? This is called ibadah maliyah. So Allah is asking him to do both things. That look, Allah has blessed you with the river in paradise. So, number one, do ibadah with your body, meaning your time, your spiritual side. The second thing, do ibadah also with your wealth, which means that we can do ibadah with our wealth. Okay? So we've got ibadah of the body and we've got ibadah of the wealth. So if we take the example of, let's say we go pray in the masjid, we go pray Jummah. Is that ibadah of the body or ibadah of the wealth?
Body.
Body, yeah? If you give zakat, is that ibadah of the body or ibadah of the wealth? The all ibadah of the wealth. There is one ibadah which is both the body as well as the wealth. Who can tell me what that is?
Hajj.
Very good. Yeah, mashallah, Hajj. Yeah, because before you actually do the physical parts of Hajj, you got to have the money to do it. So the first part is ibadah with your money, and once you've done that, then you can do the ibadah with your body. So this is one ibadah which consists of both. Okay, good. All right. So it's building upon that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses any one of us with a blessing, like He blessed the process with the Kawthar, we should turn to Him and we should thank Him for that. Verily Allah gives us lots of blessings in our lives. Allah said, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. That if you actually try to count the blessings Allah has given you, you will not be able to count them. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said to the people that you will not enter Jannah through your good deeds. Even if you're the best of people, you have the most good deeds than anybody on this earth. And they said, even you, Ya Rasulullah. And he said, even me. And he said, verily, you will enter into Jannah only by the rahmah of Allah. Okay? So that means, once again, you might not have done so many good deeds, but your sincerity to Allah, that you might not ever do Hajj, but you want to do Hajj, you love to do Hajj or Umrah, or you want to build a hospital for people in a place, your sincerity is so much that Allah will reward you as if you built it, because it wasn't a fake intention. So once again, showing us that to enter into Jannah, it is not just through our actions, even though actions are important, but sincerity comes first. Now the last part of the ayah, inna shani'aka huwal abtar. So inna, we know it is emphasis. The word we have is shana'a, which means to attack, okay, or to have malice or hatred towards someone. But the shani'a, this verb is a bit more detailed, is to have hatred towards someone for no reason, okay? That there's no legitimate reason for you to hate someone. Sometimes you may not like somebody or a people because they've done something. But here this word shana'a means that you really hate someone, but there's no logic behind why you hate them. The Prophet ﷺ never came with a message of destruction or a message of hate. Rather, it was a message of love and peace. So that's why inna shani'aka, that verily their hatred towards you is real. Okay? Now, it says inna shani, verily they oppose and the hatred is very real. Wal abtar, and the word abtar, it means cut off. Okay, inna shani'aka huwal abtar. Verily they oppose you and they are the ones who are abtar. They are the ones who are cut off. Meaning that it's their message that's not going to reach the world. It's them who are not going to get any reward. They are finished. So Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, these people, even their children, they became Muslim. They entered into the fold of Islam. They died. No one remembers them in any positive light. It's always in a negative light. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, verily they can say what they want now, but their legacy, their story is going to be finished. Huwa al-abtar, they are finished. Okay? Those who attack you, those who insult you, their message is finished. And we will see that we can extrapolate and we can say even today, okay, or even after death, for anybody who shows animosity or hatred towards the Prophet ﷺ, mocks the Prophet ﷺ, shows hatred to him, they will not be remembered. Okay? Many people, even those who hate the Prophet ﷺ or mock the Prophet ﷺ, in the end they end up becoming Muslim. How many people do we find, like the right wing in Holland, I think it was, and a few other places, they were right wing Muslim Islamophobes. And they were trying to read the Quran and criticize the Muslims. But by the time they got to the end of the Quran, they embraced Islam. So Allah says, well, abtar, that this message is cut off. That victory is to the Prophet ﷺ and the victory is to Islam. Also, when a people die, you have the example of the Prophet ﷺ who is remembered. You have the example of Abu Lahab and others that who are not remembered. So, if you could write this down, there are three categories of people. Okay, three categories of people that are known after their death. So the first category of people are those that are remembered for their goodness. So we find inside the Quran, Allah talks about the Prophet ﷺ, or in the Sunnah, we find Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, so on and so forth. These people who done good, they're remembered for their good works afterwards. Okay. The second group of people is people who are done evil in this world, and they're remembered for that evil. Okay. So the worst of all people is Fir'aun. Okay, he was the worst of all tyrants, and he's remembered for his evil. The likes of the enemy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Nimrud. Okay, now if somebody does something silly, you say, what a Nimrod. Yeah, he was such a silly person. That's how people remember Nimrod. So Abu Lahab, when you're reading the surah, to curse him. So people who done evil, they're remembered for the evil. And the third type, and really this is the majority of people, is that people, they really have no recognition. They don't know whether they were good or whether they were bad. Okay, so most people will just go and no one will know what kind of life they lived. Okay, now the reason why I mentioned these three categories is because it's up to you which one of these three categories you choose to be in. Okay, you can be remembered for doing good or for doing bad, or you can just be a number plate in a registry somewhere. Okay, so it's up to you what story you leave behind.
What was the third category?
The majority of people that they have passed away, but we don't know what they did, whether it's good or bad. So just mysterious, we don't know. Okay.
It's called Nimrod.
The enemy of Ibrahim alayhi salam was Nimrud. Okay, Nimrod. Talking about Ibrahim, look at this, the legacy of Ibrahim. He's described the Kana Ummatan. He was a ummah, he was a nation. If you look at the world today, I think we were fair to say that the most remembered man or honored man in all of the globe is Ibrahim alayhi salam. Not just because of the 1.8 million Muslims, but also the Jews and also the Christians. So it'd be fair to say that half the world, whether they've understood it correctly or incorrectly, but over half the world they praise Ibrahim alayhi salam. One man, okay? He's got the praise of half the world. So it's up to you what kind of legacy or what kind of story you leave behind. Allah is also saying that those who show hatred and animosity to the Prophet ﷺ, verily they will be destroyed. In another verse in the Quran, Allah Almighty says, "Man kana aduwwan lillahi wa malaikatihi wa rusulihi wa Jibril wa Mikail, fa inna Allah aduwwan lil kafirin." That anybody who is an enemy to Allah, or enemy to His angels, or enemy to His messengers, then verily Allah is an open enemy to that person. Okay, their destruction will come sooner or later. Okay. And in conclusion, we can conclude by saying that this surah, once again, it showed us the maqam, the position of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, in the eyes of Allah. We said before that many a times Allah Almighty expresses or shows His love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, He loves the Prophet more than anything. His love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is known. So if people show a hatred or animosity to the Prophet ﷺ, Allah brings down His punishment. We also took previously in another surah, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرًا, that we have raised your maqam. Again with this surah, Allah again shows us that He has raised His maqam again, that He is the one who will be given the garden or the river of Al Kawthar. We will also come to see soon that the Isra wal Mi'raj, when the Prophet ﷺ was gifted by being taken up into the heavens, and he saw Jannah with his own eyes, he saw Jibreel alayhi salam with his own eyes, he saw the hellfire with his own eyes, and we will talk all about that as well, inshallah ta'ala. So with that, we have finished or concluded, again, a very beautiful surah. This surah, wallahi, is very short, and I summarized it for you, but if you go back and read the tafsir on it, you'll be left for days, just keep reading. There's so many fawaid benefits that you can take from it, from a linguistic perspective, from a history perspective, so many. Okay? The next surah, if I'm correct, is going to be Takathur, and Hakum Takathur. Okay? We'll do that next week. Inshallah. So we've got a few moments. Finished a little bit early, alhamdulillah. If anyone got any questions, feel free to ask.
This surah,
Yeah.
Kawthar, was it at the time when our Prophet was going through a difficult period?
Yeah, it was revealed exactly soon after the death of Abdullah, his son. So this was very early on in the Meccan time, and he was down. He was very sad at that time. That's what Allah gave him the surah. Questions? Ladies? Yep.
So we assumed that the Prophet knew what Al Kawthar was before this was revealed. Because otherwise, I mean, like, how would he be able to reflect whether it's a good thing or really associate something to Al Kawthar?
Yeah, you can say that, possibly. There are a number of hadith the Prophet ﷺ speaks about the Kawthar. He describes the Kawthar to us. So yeah, maybe he's seen the Kawthar previously, okay, he knows about the Kawthar before, and then it was brought to his sense with that is for you. Yeah? So he knows of the Kawthar, but then it was attributed to him. Yeah? Because we find a lot of hadith that describe the Kawthar in detail, in its looks, in its appearance, and everything. So the Prophet ﷺ knew what it was. Yeah.
Did I have any other grandchildren from the three daughters than Fatima?
Any more children?
Any grandchildren from other three daughters? Four daughters, yes. Only
Okay, good question. So did the Prophet ﷺ have children from his other, so not talking about Fatima, talking about the other daughters? Anybody know the answer to that question?
Never heard.
There's no mention about it.
There's no mention of that.
So
I don't know.
Never been mentioned. Never heard.
Ruqayya lost it.
She lost a child. Yeah, because she did have when she married Uthman, she did have a child. Yeah, but he died as well at a young age, about 5 or 6. He had a son with her, and he was 5 or 6, and he died. He was playing, and it said while he was playing, a crow came and pecked him in his face, in the child's face, and from that, infection in his face, and then he died. 5 or 6. Apart from that, I'm not sure. I can have a look. Have you found anything? Gone. Okay, so the children of the Prophet ﷺ, so Hussein ibn Ali via Fatima, okay, and he had a daughter via Zainab, which was Fatima bint Muhammad. He had Hassan via Fatima, and he had via Kulthum, he had a daughter called Fatima as well, and via Umama bin, and he had through Zainab he had another daughter called Umama. Okay, good, yeah. Another page. Okay. Okay, and then Fatima also had a son called Muhsin. Zainab had a son called Ali. Ruqayya had a son called Abdullah ibn Uthman. That's very good. MashaAllah. So what did you type in? Prophet's grandchildren? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there are some children there. I'll write that up and try to put it up onto the group as well so we can learn those names. Yeah.
Is the Kawthar only restricted to the Prophet?
No. A good question. The Kawthar is a gift to the Prophet ﷺ, which is for the believers of Jannah. Okay? But the guardian of it or the owner of it is the Prophet ﷺ.
And in this translation it said about Kawthar that he saw when he went for Miraj.
Miraj, yeah. That's what the Kawthar, yeah. So he saw it. Yeah, question?
When you were talking about As bin Wa'il and Abu Lahab and Abdullah as well, the question is why they were posting when they had a son, even though the daughters cook very well.
Like I said, that the son is the one that carries the name of the family, isn't it? So, you know, the son is the one takes the name, takes the money, takes the lineage, the legacy, the story of his forefathers. Okay, so it's nothing to say that the man is better than the woman or the woman is better than the man. It's nothing to do with that. But it's just to do with the fact that your name continues, your lineage. So when the daughter's going to marry, she's going to move over into her husband's lifestyle. Okay, whereas the son is going to continue that story.
It's like if they compare the roots, like they were roots for, like son or roots of their.
Yeah,
they will carry.
the sons are the roots. So I don't know. Maybe today the sons cook better than the daughters. I don't know. Okay. We can ask the boys here.
Do you know why, how Abdullah died, or the reason?
Just illness.
Just illness.
Yeah, just died.
Is it because if at that time someone has, well, even though still in the village life, I have seen that, but is that that time as well because if he has more sons, he has more strength?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's true. That's the reason why a person who, even today, one who has more sons has more physical or financial or so and so strength. Okay, so if the girl, once the girl gets married, her responsibilities, her wajibat are with her husband. She has to support her husband. That's her objective. But the son is still obliged to keep that link with the father and support the father. So yeah, of course, the father who has sons will benefit more in that sense. Yeah.
Did your father benefit from you?
A lot. Even his son, yes.
You can ask him that off camera.
Any question?
Anybody else? Ladies, any questions?
So what do you say to people that knowing people have daughters and they still might bury them?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I forgot to mention that. Also, to contextualize this surah, remember at this time people were burying their daughters alive. Yeah, that was normal. So put all these things in your mind and just imagine what society was like. Okay, so then you'll understand what it's like to have a birth of a boy or a girl. Yeah, and like it's addressed to people who may still bury their daughters alive or think indifferently. A hadith comes to my mind where the Prophet ﷺ, he said that a man who has 3 daughters and he brings them up well, then he'll guarantee for that person Jannah. Then a man stood up and he said, what about if he's got 2? And the Prophet said, even if you've got 2. And then I said, what if you've got 1? And they said, even if you've got 1. Showing us the tarbiyah, or as a parent looking after girls, is more difficult than it is looking after boys. The responsibilities involved are more for the parents. So therefore the Prophet guaranteed that person, he didn't say that about a son. So who's better now, the girl or the boy? The girl. So here, depending on which angle you look at it, yeah, so there's preference. So the Prophet said, if you bring up your daughters well, properly, you'll be guaranteed Jannah. Yeah. To answer the question.
There's multiple rivers in Jannah, but this is one specifically.
Yeah, this is the river of rivers. Yeah. So there are other rivers, like we know, it's mentioned the river of milk, the river of honey, the river of wine, the river of water. But Al Kawthar is you could say the origin or the source of the rivers. Yeah.
Mother of the rivers.
I think we have spoken about Musalman bin Kazab before, but a question came in my mind that I would like to share with you. And instantly he replied to Inna Al Kawthar with a few poetry, yeah?
Yeah.
So it looks to me he was quite intelligent. Do you agree at least he has apple in his head?
He's got apple in his head. He's intelligent. Yeah, of course. We don't deny that. It doesn't mean just because somebody opposes Allah and His Rasul that he is silly or he's not intelligent. Of course, he's very intelligent. People who oppose the message does not necessitate that they are not intelligent. They were very intelligent, they chose not to. Okay? Iblis, for example, the leader of all evil. Okay? So is he not intelligent? Of course he's intelligent. He knew there's a Jannah. He knows the existence of Allah. He knows Allah created Adam. He knows everything. He knows more than me and you put together. But he chose to go to Jahannam. Okay, that was the decision he made by not prostrating. So he was intelligent, but intelligence doesn't always equal the fact that you're guided. Okay, I'll give you another example of that. I was watching a documentary and they were talking about doctors and surgeons and religion. And in there they showed there was a Hindu guy, he was a heart surgeon, so highly educated. And then in his break time he would go to his locker room, open the cupboard, and inside he's got a statue of a monkey or an elephant, I don't know, and then he starts worshipping. Is that intelligence? Allah gave him such a brain. Yeah, he's excelled in the dunya. But when it comes to Allah, he's got nothing. That's not intelligence. Whereas, I'm sure you've seen many of that video of that, the Yemeni Bedouin Arab that was taking his sheep. If you look at the way he was dressed, he's got no money, he's nothing. Ask him any equation or question, you probably won't even be able to say anything properly. And he's taking his sheep. And you can see the video on YouTube, it's beautiful. And the people in there, they were Saudis, and they opened the window and they said to him, look, give us one of those sheep. And he said, no. He said, why? He goes, look, we'll give you this amount of money, just give us a sheep. He said, they're not mine. I'm just taking them, I'm looking after them, I have to take them, so they're not mine. And they said to him, look, you're just here in the middle of it, no one's going to see you, it's a desert, just give it to us, we'll give you this amount of money, we won't have no one. He goes, no, he goes, Allah can see me. And he's a Bedouin, he does not know anything. That's intelligence. That's the intelligence that Allah is talking about. Maybe he didn't have a degree from Oxford or Cambridge, he doesn't wear a suit, but he has real intelligence, the aql that Allah gave, and for its purpose. He recognizes Allah. He was offered millions for a sheep, and he didn't do it. And he's in the middle of a desert, no one can see what he's doing. But he didn't do it. The video's on YouTube, you can type it and watch it, it's amazing. And he refused. And the people who were asking the question, they were brought to tears because of his iman and connection with Allah. This is intelligence.
Just on that point, it shows that when revelation came, it was shared amongst everyone. Because otherwise he would never come to know about the person who created his own poetry.
Yeah, he did. So we know that from last week when we said that Amr ibn al-As, before he accepted Islam, he went to him. Okay, so he was listening he was listening to the message of the Prophet ﷺ. He was going to Musaylimah, he's going to different people. When he approached Musaylimah, Musaylimah al-Kadhab asked Amr ibn al-As, he said, so what has this, Amr, because he was a Muslim, he said, what has he said now? Okay, and then he repeated an ayah, and then Musaylimah went quiet, and he came back with another one. He goes, what do you think of this? And then Amr ibn al-As, he wasn't a Muslim at that time, what did he say? He said, Wallahi, you know that I know you are a liar. And this is proof that you are a liar. And he wasn't a Muslim at that time. Yeah? So yeah, he was aware. Any other questions?
What is your opinion about the way camel is slaughtered? Isn't it cruelty?
I would respond with that is, number one, my opinion doesn't matter. Okay, so whatever I say doesn't make any difference to anything. At the end of the day, the criteria of what is good and bad is coming to you from the Quran or Sunnah. If I say something from my own opinion, okay, then you should correct me if I'm wrong. And if I'm right, then it's fine. Okay, so my opinion doesn't matter. I'm just, what they call it, naqid. I'm just transferring information from books to the audience. That's it. So my opinion doesn't really matter. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, an-nahr, and that's the way to slaughter the camel, then 100% that's the best way to slaughter it. There's no doubt about it. Okay? The same way the dhabiha, the way Allah has taught us to do dhabiha, is the best way. Okay? And there's another video you can find on YouTube, another beautiful one. I think we talked about this before, about the guy in New Zealand or Australia. He's got a farm, he pulls out a sheep, and he lays a sheep in front of him, and he starts stroking the sheep, and he's reading Quran on the sheep, and the sheep just literally just goes to sleep. Just falls, listens to the Quran, just falls onto the floor, and then he lifts the air, and he uses his hand just to show to the video, and he puts his hand on the neck of the sheep, and he actually is pretending to, and the lamb or the sheep is just lying there, not moving, showing you that the lamb is accepting it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed that is the method to slaughter your animals, and that's the best way. Not by stunning them, by injecting them, putting 1,000 chickens in a pool, electrocuting them, okay, and then sending them out to KFC. No, that's not the way Allah has prescribed.
But I tried to slaughter a chicken, I'm honest with you, and don't get me wrong. And if you used to listen, you tried to fly from it.
I don't blame the chicken.
What were you singing to?
No, it depends on what part of the chicken you're holding. Touching his legs.
No, Islam victory. Please, please.
No, I think that's not the chicken's fault.
Good answer.
I have other two questions, but I'm not getting in
Okay.
anybody's way.
Any other ladies, any questions? Yeah.
Well, your audience is becoming huge. Can we get a bigger classroom?
Oh, mashallah.
Because your popularity.
I'll ignore the praise part. Can we get a bigger classroom? We can have a look. Yeah, we can have a look around. If we stay in the same area, it might be a bit difficult. We can have a look. There is a place across the road that's bigger than this, but it's not as clean as this. And I was tempted to move, but it's not as clean as this. So,
Shall I ask the actual mosque? So that they can allow us to. Is that too far for everybody?
you can ask them. I don't mind. I don't lose most of it from acting anyway. You can ask them.
These are big, we can accommodate.
You can ask them, yeah.
Because the quantity, because these are taking space and I think they're like a desk.
Yeah, the ladies need some more space, don't they?
If we have more tables, we could just line up rows.
Smaller size.
Yeah.
Because that whole middle space is...
What we could do, I don't know what ladies think, is like this table here that's got a little desk at the front, get these chairs and just get rid of the table, so every person has a chair and a little
That's
table.
a good idea.
What do you think of that?